It is the beginning of the year 2026. The world is in a very dangerous situation. Many people feel worried because big changes are happening quickly. A few days ago, on January 3, the United States military took the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro. President Donald Trump said that the U.S. is now in charge of Venezuela and will lead the country for some time. This action was very bold and surprised many other countries. Also, President Trump is openly saying he wants to take Greenland. Greenland is a large island that belongs to Denmark. Denmark is a close friend and a strong ally of the United States. Both countries are part of Nato, which is a group of countries that promise to help each other if any member is attacked. These two important events are causing a huge problem for the world. NATO was created many years ago to keep peace and protect its members from outside enemies. But now, the biggest and most powerful member, the United States, is threatening another member, Denmark. Leaders in Europe are now facing a very difficult and scary question. What should we do when our most important friend and ally suddenly becomes our biggest threat? This situation is causing great concern and fear across the globe. It makes everyone ask how such an explosive and dangerous situation started. What events led to this point where the main alliance in the world could break apart? We need to understand what lit the fuse for this major global crisis. A big problem. The world faced a big change on January 3rd, 2026. This was the day of Operation Absolute Resolve in Venezuela. The United States military took action there very early in the morning. U.S. forces first bombed some important buildings in northern Venezuela. This was to stop the country's air defenses. Then a special team attacked the home of Venezuela's president, Nicolás Maduro, in Caracas. U.S. Army Delta Force soldiers, with help from the CIA, captured President Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. They were both flown to New York City to face a trial. After this, President Donald Trump declared that the United States was now in charge of Venezuela. He said his government would control the country until a new government could be set up. This strong action surprised many countries around the world. During the operation, some lives were lost, including civilians and military personnel. This military action was part of a new, bold foreign policy from President Trump. He called it the Monroe Doctrine. This name came from an older policy, the Monroe Doctrine. That first doctrine was created in 1823 by President James Monroe. It warned European countries not to get involved in the Americas. Over many years, the Monroe Doctrine became a reason for the United States to act in countries across Latin America. But President Trump's new Monroe Doctrine was even stronger. It made it clear that the U.S. would be the most powerful nation in the Western Hemisphere. The new policy aimed to stop countries from outside the Americas from having military forces or controlling important resources in the region. President Trump stated that American dominance in this part of the world would never be questioned again. After Venezuela, President Trump's administration started looking at other countries like Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico under this new policy. This brought up a very important question: Greenland. Geographically, Greenland is part of North America. However, it belongs to Denmark, which is a country in Europe and a friend to the U.S. in NATO. So, did Greenland now fall under President Trump's aggressive new Monroe Doctrine? And why was this cold, far-off island suddenly so important to the United States? 3. A special place. Greenland is a very special place, and it is now at the center of a big problem. This large island is part of Denmark, but it is in North America. More than 2/3 of Greenland is in the Arctic Circle. This location makes it very important for safety. The United States has a military base there called Pituffik Space Base. This base helps the US and NATO watch for missiles and other things in space. It is a key part of protecting North America. Also, the world is getting warmer. The ice in the Arctic is melting. This is opening new sea routes for ships. These routes can make trade easier across the world. But it also means more countries want to use this area. Russia and China are very interested in the Arctic. Donald Trump and his advisors think this is a danger to American safety. Greenland also has a lot of valuable things hidden under its land. It has some of the world's largest amounts of rare earth elements. These are special minerals. They are very important for making modern technology. For example, they are used in cell phones, electric cars, wind power machines, and army equipment. Without these minerals, many new technologies cannot be built. Both China and Russia know about these minerals. China, for example, has shown interest in Greenland's resources. China is already very good at mining rare earth elements. This makes Greenland a very valuable place for the future. It is not just land, it is a key part of 21st century power and defense. Now that everyone understands how important Greenland is, a big question remains. How far will Donald Trump go to get this valuable island? What strong threats will he make against Denmark, a country that is a NATO friend? 4. Trump's big plan. President Donald Trump had shown interest in Greenland before, starting in 2019. But now, in early 2026, his plans for the island became much more serious. The Trump administration began making strong threats. President Trump told reporters that he wanted to make a deal, quote, "the easy way," unquote.
However, he also warned, if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. This made it clear that military force was a possible choice. A White House spokesperson said that using the United States military was always an option for the president as commander-in-chief. The government looked at many ways to get control of Greenland. They thought about buying the island from Denmark. They also considered giving large amounts of money to the people of Greenland to make them want to join the United States. Another idea was a special agreement like those with some Pacific Island nations. In the end, a direct military takeover was also on the table. People close to the Trump administration also sent strong messages. Katie Miller, whose husband, Stephen Miller, is a close advisor to President Trump, posted something on social media. She shared a picture of a map of Greenland with an American flag covering it. Under the picture, she wrote one word: soon. Stephen Miller himself said in public that Greenland should become part of the United States. He believed that no country would use military force to stop the United States from taking over Greenland. President Trump often said that if the United States did not take Greenland, then Russia or China might. He argued that the United States could not have Russia or China as a neighbor there. These threats made the situation very tense.
With the United States openly talking about using its military, many people wondered how Denmark and Greenland, two smaller nations, could stand against such a powerful country. 5. Denmark says no. Greenland's leaders said no to the United States. They made their message very clear. The island's government announced that they could not accept a U.S. takeover under any circumstances. They reminded everyone that Greenland is part of Denmark and a NATO member. This means Greenland's defense must be handled through NATO. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen also gave strong warnings. She said that if the United States attacked another NATO country, it would mean the end of the alliance. She stressed that such an action would also stop all post-World War II security arrangements. Prime Minister Frederiksen called this a decisive moment. She stated that Denmark was ready to defend its values in the Arctic. Denmark believes in international law and people's right to decide their own future. All 5 of Greenland's political parties stood together. They issued a shared statement asking the U.S. to stop its pressure on their country. Their message was simple: we do not want to be Americans, we do not want to be Danes, we want to be Greenlanders. Most people in Greenland support this view. A poll from early 2025 showed that 85% of Greenlanders are against a U.S. takeover.
If given a choice between Danish or American citizenship, 55% would pick Danish, and only 8% would choose American. While most Greenlanders want to be independent from Denmark one day, they do not want to be under U.S. control. Denmark is also taking practical steps. The country announced it would spend almost $2.3 billion more on its Arctic defense capabilities. This money will be used for 3 new Arctic naval ships, 2 long-range surveillance drones, and improved satellite systems. Denmark has already reached NATO's goal of spending 2% of its total money on defense in 2024. By 2025, it plans to spend even more, reaching 3.22%. Denmark is a small nation, but has been a very loyal NATO ally, fighting alongside the U.S. in many missions. Denmark and Greenland have drawn a clear line. They will not accept the United States' demands, but they are small nations, facing a world superpower. The crucial question now is what their European allies will do. Will these allies truly support Denmark and Greenland with more than just words? Or will they be left alone to face President Donald Trump's threats? Europe now faces a very important decision. Europe is worried. Europe looked on with great worry. Many countries in Europe showed public support for Denmark.
On January 6th, big countries like France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, and the United Kingdom made a joint statement. They said that Greenland belongs to its people. They also stressed that only Denmark and Greenland can decide its future. These nations believed in the rules of the United Nations. They clearly stated that borders must be safe and not changed by force, and that Arctic security needed to be shared by all NATO members. Leaders from Sweden and Germany also spoke out. Sweden's Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson condemned the United States' threatening rhetoric. He said that Sweden, the Nordic countries, the Baltic states, and several major European countries stood together with their Danish friends. Germany's Foreign Minister Johan Wadepool stated clearly that since Denmark belongs to NATO, Greenland would be defended by NATO. He also said Germany was ready to help more with Arctic security. This showed a strong, united front to the world. But behind these strong public words, there was much fear and doubt among European nations. Europe was not fully united. For example, the European Commission, a big political body in Europe, did not give a clear opinion. This showed how difficult it was for Europe to agree on how to act when a strong ally, the United States, threatened another NATO country. Many officials felt a deep uncertainty. European leaders faced a very difficult choice. They depend a lot on the United States for their safety and military strength. This dependency is especially strong now because of the ongoing war in Ukraine, where American help is vital. If they acted too strongly against President Donald Trump and his threats, the United States might abandon them. This would leave Europe vulnerable. But if they did nothing, NATO would lose all its meaning. It would show that NATO's promise to protect its members was not real and could expose all members to future threats. Some European officials started to discuss previously unthinkable measures in private. They thought about serious actions, like refusing to give American ships fuel in European ports. They considered not treating injured American military personnel in European hospitals. They even talked about asking for very high payments for American troops to stay in Europe, or proposing to close certain military bases. However, for these big plans to work, all of Europe would need unprecedented unity and strong will. This crisis put NATO's core ideas in great danger. It challenged the very foundation of the Western Alliance. What does NATO's founding treaty, called Article 5, actually say when there is a conflict between two of its own members? Is there any way to stop this important alliance from breaking apart from the inside? 7. NATO in crisis. The Donroe Doctrine changed how the world saw American power. It showed that the United States, led by President Donald Trump, wanted strong control in its region. This new way of thinking created a huge problem for NATO, an alliance built on trust and shared defense. NATO has a very important rule called Article 5. This rule says that if one member country is attacked, all other member countries must help defend it. It means an armed attack against one or more of them shall be considered an attack against them all. This rule was used only one time before, after the attacks on the United States on September 11, 2001. Now, with the United States possibly attacking Denmark over Greenland, Article 5 cannot work as it should. For NATO to take action, all member countries must agree. If the United States, led by President Donald Trump, were to use military force against Denmark, it would not agree to any collective action against itself. This means NATO cannot vote to go to war against its own most powerful member. The alliance was simply not made for a fight between two of its members, especially when one is the world's leading military power. The treaty assumes that our home front is in order. NATO's leader, Secretary General Mark Rutte, is in a very difficult spot. He must try to keep the 32 member countries united. He conspicuously avoids direct comment on the Greenland situation. He cannot openly criticize President Trump because one of his main tasks is to ensure the United States remains committed to NATO. Instead, he talks about shared problems, like security in the Arctic and possible threats from Russia and China, hoping to redirect attention. But his silence makes other smaller NATO countries worried. They fear that if the United States can threaten a member like Denmark without real consequences, then NATO's promise to defend all members might not be true for them either. This precedent fundamentally weakens the idea of mutual defense. Military experts have a clear view. They believe that if the United States decided to take Greenland by force, other European countries would likely not fight back. They ask, what European military commander is going to open force on a U.S. troop transport coming into Greenland? No European general would want to start a war within NATO. Such an act by the United States would likely be unopposed in military terms. However, these experts also say that this move would definitely mean the end of NATO. The alliance would lose its purpose and trust. The idea that all members would defend each other would be broken, making the alliance's mutual defense promise look conditional and political. This situation challenges the very core of NATO. If the alliance's main principle is broken, its future is unclear. The world order, built after the Second World War, now faces a major breaking point. What final talks can still happen to fix this, if any? And what would a world look like without a strong, united Western alliance?
What happens next? Now, in early 2026, many intense talks are happening to stop the situation from getting worse. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting with officials from Denmark and Greenland. European nations are also working together to find a way forward. However, Mr. Rubio has not said that the U.S. will stop thinking about military options. President Donald Trump still wants to control Greenland, but leaders in Greenland have made it clear their land is not for sale, and they will not give up their independence easily. There are even ideas for Europe to take more responsibility for Arctic security, perhaps by sending European troops or ships to Greenland. This crisis gives a big advantage to some countries. Russia sees this as a strategic gift. A weaker NATO, or one that breaks apart, would help Russia in places like Ukraine and Eastern Europe. China's situation is more complex. Some believe President Trump's focus on the Western Hemisphere takes U.S. attention away from Asia, which could help China. Others worry that the U.S. might use force against China in other parts of the world, just as it did in Venezuela. Many believe this crisis could mean the end of the world's international rules. After World War II, countries agreed on rules for peace and sovereignty. If one powerful country can take land from another, what stops others? The United Nations cannot easily help because the U.S., as a powerful member, could stop any action against itself.
Big questions remain. Can NATO survive if its own members fight? How will Europe protect itself without a strong NATO? Will Greenland, with its small population, truly get to choose its own future? This moment is a major turning point for global history. The choices made now in Washington, Copenhagen, Nuuk, and European capitals will decide the future of world order for many years. Historians will look back at this time to see if the ideas of peace and alliances from after World War II remained strong, or if they finally broke apart. The decisions made will shape how nations, big and small, see their own safety and freedom in the future. What do you think will happen to NATO after this crisis?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world.